If a Viking warrior lost his attention in battle, he didn't lose a moment. He lost his life. Because in the world of the North, attention was never a luxury. It was not some abstract mental skill discussed in comfortable rooms. It was survival in its rawest form. A man standing inside the shield wall could not afford to let his thoughts drift. He could not divide himself between the clash in front of him and the memories inside his head. He could not follow every sound, every movement, every distraction. His mind had to remain where his body was, fully, sharply, completely. Because one crack in attention could become a crack in the line, and one crack in the line could become blood on the ground. The Vikings understood something the modern world has quietly forgotten. Attention is not a small thing. Attention is the gate through which reality enters your life. It determines what you notice, what you ignore, what you value, what you fear, what you desire, and what you eventually become. When attention is directed with intention, life begins to take shape. But when attention is constantly stolen, fractured, interrupted, and redirected, life begins to scatter with it. Today, of course, the battlefield looks different. There are no shields, no axes, no longships pushing across black water before dawn, no watchmen on the bow staring at the horizon for enemy sails. The visible dangers of the old world have been replaced by quieter dangers. But quiet does not mean harmless. The modern person loses attention not to battle, but to interruption, to a glowing screen, to a vibration in the pocket, to a small red circle demanding immediate response, to an endless stream of novelty that always feels urgent and rarely is. The strange thing is that most people already feel this happening. They know their minds are restless. They know their focus is weaker than it used to be. They know that after hours of scrolling, they do not feel rested, only strangely empty. They know they are checking things automatically, even when there is nothing important to find. But they usually misunderstand the scale of the problem. They think the phone is stealing time. And yes, it does. But that is not the deepest loss. The deeper loss is attention itself. Because time can be counted, attention cannot. Attention shapes the quality of whatever time you live through. Two people can spend the same hour in the same room, and yet one of them truly lives it, while the other drifts through fragments. One sees, thinks, notices, absorbs, reflects. The other skims, reacts, refreshes, and leaves with almost nothing held deeply enough to matter. This is why the issue is larger than productivity. It is larger than screen time. It is larger even than discipline, though discipline is deeply tied to it. Attention is the direction of consciousness, and consciousness, over years, becomes a life. What you repeatedly attend to becomes your inner climate. What you repeatedly return to becomes familiar. What becomes familiar becomes comfortable, and what becomes comfortable begins to shape your habits, your identity, and your choices. A person who gives constant attention to noise begins to feel noise as normal. A person who gives constant attention to outrage begins to feel agitation as normal. A person who gives constant attention to stimulation begins to lose the ability to tolerate stillness. And stillness is where many of the deepest things in life begin. Clarity begins there. Reflection begins there. Meaning begins there. The Vikings guarded their attention because the world demanded it. You must guard yours because the modern world is designed to take it. Not violently, not dramatically, but continuously, quietly, professionally, systematically, And if you do not protect it deliberately, someone else will direct it for you. Your feed will decide what enters your emotional life. Your notifications will decide when your thoughts are interrupted. Your screen will decide how often silence is broken. And little by little, without any obvious catastrophe, you stop living from intention and begin living from reaction. That is the hidden theft. Not simply that the phone takes your hours, but that it trains the mind to abandon the present moment again and again until absence begins to feel normal. And once absence feels normal, a person can spend years moving through life without ever fully standing inside it. Look carefully at the modern world, and you will notice a pattern so common that people almost never stop to question it. People are physically together, but mentally elsewhere. They sit across from one another in cafes, yet their eyes keep dropping to a screen. They stand on trains with headphones in, staring downward, surrounded by other people doing exactly the same thing. They wait in lines, but they no longer really wait. Every pause is filled instantly. Every silence is covered. Every empty second is occupied before it can become anything else. This is one of the great psychological shifts of modern life. Human beings have lost much of their relationship with unfilled time. And because they have lost unfilled time, they have also lost contact with many of the mental states that once emerged from it. Patience, wandering thought, reflection, boredom, observation, emotional digestion, quiet imagination. The phone has not simply changed what people do, it has changed what they can tolerate. Most people can no longer sit in a room for even a few minutes without wanting to reach for stimulation. They call this normal because everyone else does it. But normal is not the same as healthy. A culture can normalize distraction and still train itself into weakness. That is what makes the problem difficult to see. It hides inside ordinary behavior. No one looks alarmed while checking a phone. No one appears to be in danger while scrolling. No dramatic collapse happens in the moment. But something is still being trained each time. A relationship with interruption, a dependence on novelty, a shortened threshold for stillness. People often say, "I'm just checking something." And at first, that may be true. But modern apps are not passive tools. They are built around the economics of attention. Their success depends on keeping the user engaged, returning, reacting, staying longer than intended, and coming back more frequently tomorrow. Infinite scroll is not innocent. Notifications are not neutral. Autoplay is not harmless. Short-form content is not arranged by accident. These systems are designed around reward loops, unpredictability, and behavioral reinforcement. The brain is highly vulnerable to these things, not because the brain is foolish, because it is ancient. For most of human history, novelty mattered. New movement could mean danger. A new sound could mean opportunity. A change in the environment could affect survival. The mind evolved to orient quickly toward what was new. But the phone exploits that same system in an environment where novelty is no longer rare. It is constant. A new message, a new clip, a new opinion, a new image, a new reason to keep going. Each reward is small. That is part of why it works. If the reward were too large, it would satisfy. But these rewards keep attention slightly hungry, slightly expectant, slightly unfinished. The mind remains open, waiting for the next thing. And because the next thing always arrives quickly, the brain adapts to that rhythm. This adaptation has a cost. The cost is reduced depth, because depth forms slowly. To understand something deeply, the mind must stay with it. To feel something fully, the mind must stay with it. To create something meaningful, the mind must stay with it. But the phone trains the opposite reflex. Sample quickly. Move on. Refresh. Check again. Do not remain too long in one place. This creates a life lived on the surface of things. A person may consume thousands of pieces of information and still struggle to form one deep thought from them. They may communicate constantly and still feel very little true connection. They may feel busy all day while never entering real concentration even once. And then they blame themselves. They think the problem is laziness. Sometimes it is not laziness. Sometimes it is a mind trained for fragmentation. The Viking metaphor matters here because it reminds us of a different relationship with attention. The lookout at sea could not afford to switch every few seconds. The man watching the horizon had to watch the horizon. There was value in remaining. And continuity is exactly what the modern mind is losing. Not because it is weak by nature, because it is being conditioned out of depth, one interruption at a time. There is another layer to this problem that is even more unsettling. The phone does not only damage attention when it is actively being used, it can damage attention simply by being nearby. This is one of the stranger truths of modern cognition. A phone resting face down on a desk looks inactive. A phone in the pocket appears silent. A phone on the bedside table seems harmless. But psychologically, it is often not absent. Part of the mind remains oriented toward it. A small doorway inside attention stays open. Maybe it will vibrate. Maybe a message will arrive. Maybe there is something waiting. Maybe there is something important. Even when nothing happens, the possibility remains alive inside the nervous system. And possibility consumes energy. This matters because deep focus depends on continuity. The mind needs to settle into one task deeply enough that the task becomes the center of awareness. But a nearby phone keeps some part of awareness on standby. It creates low-grade anticipation. It encourages partial vigilance. And partial vigilance is exhausting over time. Imagine a Viking watchman trying to scan the sea, while someone beside him keeps whispering, "Look here, check again." Something might be happening. He could still perform his task, perhaps. But the quality of his observation would fall. His clarity would become divided. The danger might not be obvious immediately, but it would still be real. This is how the nearby phone functions. It fragments attention before the person even touches it. That fragmentation has consequences. Tasks take longer because the mind has to rebuild depth each time it drifts. Reading becomes harder because the brain has become conditioned to expect interruption before a thought can mature. Work becomes more tiring because shallow focus requires repeated re-entry. Even leisure becomes less restorative because the nervous system never fully leaves alert mode. A person may finish the day feeling depleted while having done very little that was meaningfully difficult. This confuses many people. They think tiredness always comes from hard effort. But there is another kind of tiredness, the tiredness of being mentally reachable all day, the tiredness of switching, anticipating, checking, reacting, and never fully settling. This is what makes the damage deceptive. It does not always feel dramatic. It feels ordinary. Slight restlessness, slight fatigue, slight difficulty beginning difficult tasks, slight discomfort in silence, slight dependence on background stimulation. But slight repeated often enough, becomes structure. And structure becomes character. The phone also changes a person's relationship to discomfort. This is one of the deepest parts of the whole problem. Discipline requires the capacity to remain with mild discomfort long enough for it to pass. The first minutes of deep work are often uncomfortable. The first pages of a difficult book are often uncomfortable. The first moments of silence are often uncomfortable. Even honest conversation can contain discomfort. Meaningful life is full of thresholds that are not immediately pleasant. The distracted mind becomes weak at thresholds. It reaches outward quickly. It wants relief before adaptation happens, and the phone offers relief with incredible speed. Boredom? Scroll? Anxiety? Check. Work resistance? Refresh. Loneliness? Open something. Confusion. Escape into stimulation. The brain learns a dangerous lesson from this pattern. Discomfort is something to interrupt, not something to move through. But almost every valuable thing in life requires moving through some early discomfort. Without that ability, discipline erodes. Not because the person lacks moral strength, but because they have trained themselves, often unintentionally, to exit the moment too quickly. This is where attention and self-command become inseparable. A person cannot become deeply disciplined if they cannot protect their attention from constant leakage. A person cannot build deep work on top of chronic interruption. A person cannot build inner stillness while remaining continuously available to every passing signal. The Vikings guarded attention because divided awareness could cost everything. The modern person must learn the same principle under softer conditions, because modern life rarely punishes distraction immediately. It punishes it slowly, through weaker focus, shallower thought, reduced tolerance for effort, emotional restlessness, and days that feel crowded but underlived. So what does it mean, practically, to guard attention? It does not mean smashing your phone, vanishing into the woods, or pretending the modern world does not exist. It means creating deliberate boundaries strong enough to interrupt unconscious patterns. The Viking metaphor helps because it frames attention as something worth defending. A ship had boundaries. A settlement had boundaries. A warrior had a shield, a stance, a perimeter. In the same way, the mind needs boundaries if it is to remain clear in an environment built to invade it. The first step is simple, though not always easy. Remove the phone from immediate reach during any activity that deserves depth. Not silence it. Not turn it face down. Not promise yourself you will ignore it. Remove it. Another room, a drawer, a bag across the hall. Distance matters because friction matters. The more effortless the distraction, the more likely you are to slip into it before conscious thought even appears. One of the most effective practices is what we can call an attention fast. Choose a single hour each day when the phone does not exist for you. During that hour, do one thing. Read one chapter. Write one page. Study one idea. Walk without stimulation. Sit with tea and no input. Work on one meaningful task. At first, this often feels unexpectedly difficult. The mind reaches for interruption the way a hand reaches toward an old habit before the person even notices. Restlessness rises. Time seems to slow down. The room feels too quiet. The task feels strangely heavy. People often interpret this as failure. It is not failure. It is withdrawal from overstimulation. It is the mind realizing it no longer has immediate access to its usual escape route. And this is where retraining begins. The first stage of reclaiming attention is not peace, it is agitation, then boredom, then resistance. And only if a person remains long enough does the next stage appear. Settling, then continuity, then concentration, then sometimes something deeper than concentration, presence. This matters because modern self-help often presents discipline as if it should feel immediately empowering. But many healthy things feel awkward at the beginning. A body relearning strength shakes. A person relearning honesty feels exposed. A nervous system relearning stillness becomes restless before it becomes calm. The same is true for attention. Do not expect the first protected hour to feel beautiful. Expect it to reveal the condition of your mind. That revelation is useful. It tells you how dependent you have become on interruption. Another essential boundary is the morning. If the day begins with the phone, the mind begins in reaction. Before the person has formed a thought of their own, the world has already entered. Other people's messages, other people's opinions, other people's emergencies, other people's images, other people's priorities. This creates a mind that starts the day externally directed. The Vikings, in spirit, would understand the danger of this. A watchman does not begin his shift by asking the crowd what horizon he should look at. He begins by looking. The first minutes of the day should belong to your own mind. No phone for the first 20 or 30 minutes is not a trendy productivity trick. It is an act of sovereignty. The same is true at night. If the day ends in endless stimulation, attention never truly lands. The nervous system remains open. Thought remains agitated. Emotional residue keeps circulating. Sleep may still come, but mental closure does not. So guard the edges. Morning and evening, work and solitude, meals and reading, conversation and walking. It is not necessary to become perfect. It is necessary to become deliberate. Because what weakens attention most is not one giant mistake. It is constant casual access. And a guarded mind is not rigid. It is selective. It decides what gets entry and when. When attention begins to return, life changes in ways that are quieter than most people expect. There may be no dramatic transformation at first, no cinematic breakthrough, no sudden rebirth into perfect discipline. Instead, the changes arrive with a kind of subtle dignity. A task that used to feel impossible to begin now feels merely difficult. A page that used to be abandoned after 2 paragraphs is finished. A walk without stimulation becomes tolerable, then pleasant, then strangely nourishing. A conversation starts to feel deeper because you are no longer half listening while half reaching for somewhere else. This is because attention is not merely a productivity tool. It is the medium through which life is experienced. You do not truly live where your body is. You live where your attention is. If your body sits across from someone you love, but your attention is inside your phone, then your life at that moment is not really with them. If your body is at your desk, but your attention keeps leaking into messages, feeds, and anticipatory checking, then your life is not fully inside your work. If your body is in nature, but your mind is constantly reaching for stimulation, then even beauty becomes thin. Presence gives life density. Without presence, experience becomes diluted. This explains why so many modern people feel overstimulated and undernourished at the same time. They consume endlessly, yet remain unsatisfied. They absorb information all day, yet struggle to form deep understanding. They are in contact with everyone, yet feel oddly far from real connection. Their hours are filled, but not inhabited. Attention changes this. When attention strengthens, the ordinary becomes more vivid. Tea tastes like tea again. The morning sky becomes visible again. The sound of your own thoughts becomes hearable again. Work becomes less chaotic because the mind stays with it, long enough for structure to emerge. Even emotional life changes. Feelings become easier to notice before they become overwhelming. Restlessness becomes visible earlier. Anxiety can be observed sooner. Impulses become less tyrannical because the mind is no longer trained to react instantly to every inner movement. This is where attention protection becomes more than efficiency. It becomes inner contact. And inner contact is one of the rarest things in a distracted age. Many people fear silence because silence removes the noise that helps them avoid themselves. Many people fear boredom because boredom is often the gate before reflection. Many people fear stillness because stillness reveals how agitated the nervous system has become. This is understandable. But it is also exactly why those states must be re-entered gently and deliberately. The Viking metaphor matters again here. A man standing watch on the edge of a ship is not merely avoiding distraction. He is in relationship with the horizon. He is seeing clearly. He is present enough to notice what matters. The modern person needs an equivalent relationship to the inner and outer world. Not necessarily dramatic, but real. To be present enough to notice their own mind. Present enough to notice the person in front of them. Present enough to feel when attention is being stolen. Present enough to choose not to follow every signal. This is why 1 hour of protected attention each day can change more than people expect. It is not only rebuilding focus. It is rebuilding trust between you and your own mind. You begin to experience yourself not as someone helplessly pulled by every distraction, but as someone capable of staying. That shift matters, because identity is built from repeated evidence. Every uninterrupted hour becomes proof. Proof that the mind can still settle. Proof that depth is still possible. Proof that silence does not have to be filled. Proof that meaning still emerges when attention remains long enough. A culture may normalize constant interruption. You do not have to normalize it inside yourself. That decision alone changes the quality of a life. Quietly, but profoundly. So the question is no longer whether the phone affects attention. It does. The real question is whether you will continue living as if your attention were an unlimited resource. It is not. It is one of the most valuable things you possess. Your attention determines what grows inside you, what becomes familiar, what becomes emotionally charged, what feels normal, what receives repetition, what eventually becomes habit, what eventually becomes identity. A distracted life rarely collapses all at once. It drifts. And drifting is dangerous because it is easy to tolerate for a long time before its cost becomes undeniable. A ship without a helmsman may still move, but movement is not direction. Modern people often mistake motion for direction. They are constantly engaged, constantly receiving, constantly checking, constantly responding. Yet beneath that motion, there is often a quiet absence of intention. The day is steered by what appears, not by what matters. Notifications pull the sail. Feeds change the course. Algorithms decide the weather of the inner world. A person can live like this for years and still appear functional. That is part of the danger. Fragmentation rarely looks like disaster from the outside, but inwardly, something weakens. Clarity weakens. Patience weakens. The ability to remain with difficult work weakens. The ability to sit in stillness weakens. The ability to notice subtle beauty weakens. The ability to feel deeply without immediately escaping into stimulation weakens. And eventually, a person may begin to sense a painful truth. They are present for less of their own life than they thought. This is why attention has become a modern form of sovereignty. To guard your attention is to guard your ability to choose, to decide what enters your mind, to decide what gets emotional power, to decide what interrupts you and what must wait, to decide whether the first minutes of the morning belong to your own consciousness or to the demands of the world, to decide whether your evenings close in quiet or dissolve into endless input. The Vikings guarded the horizon because what entered awareness could determine the fate of the ship. You must guard your attention because what enters awareness determines the shape of your life. This can begin very simply. No phone for the first 20 minutes of the morning. No phone for the last 20 minutes of the evening. 1 daily hour with the phone in another room. 1 walk without stimulation. 1 meal without a screen. 1 conversation without glancing away. 1 page read with full presence. 1 difficult task begun before checking anything. These actions seem small. That is precisely why they work. The mind is changed by repetition, not by dramatic declarations. The same way constant interruption trained fragmentation, repeated protection can train steadiness. The same way endless checking trained dependency, small boundaries can train self-command. The same way novelty weakened stillness, silence can strengthen it again. Tonight, when you place your phone down, notice what rises. The urge to check, the twitch of curiosity, the reflex to reach, the discomfort of emptiness. Do not fear that moment. Study it. That moment is evidence of how the mind has been trained, and if you can remain there, even briefly, something begins to return. Choice, distance, space, then presence. Then, over time, a quiet authority. The watchman on the edge of a Viking ship was not powerful because the sea was quiet. He was powerful because his mind did not chase every sound. That is the lesson. The goal is not to make the world silent. The goal is to become less easily pulled. Calm, alert, present. Eyes on the horizon again. Guard your attention, and you guard the direction of your life.